I just want to share with you why we are here. Like the program director has said, we are gathered here to see and receive what the research has come out with, which was understanding online gender-based violence, media freedom, and digital rights. This has been made possible through the USAID funding, through the ARISA, which is Advancing Rights in Southern Africa, and in partnership with the organization that I'm here representing, putting on the hat of being a board member, which is Gender Links. Online GBV is just as good as offline GBV. So it is one of the serious issues that as a country we are faced with, as a region we are really having problems with, because we have seen in the Southern African region that gender-based violence has gone extremely high. And with these findings, we will definitely see how it is. We will have gone deeper than what we may see on the surface. So Botswana is of the 3 countries that the survey that was done or have been conducted from. That is Botswana, South Africa, and Namibia. I want to believe when Pam comes, she will dwell deeply into the objectives, so let me not go that area. And here we should engage, we should fully participate, we should interrogate what is coming out so that we can shape this in a better and best way.
We are meeting at a very option time when the priorities of the present government focuses on digitalization, of which, amongst other things, is emphasizing on access for all, infrastructure for all. What it simply means is that more and more people will be going online. This topical discussion that we are having today, GBV, it's a really unfortunate development. It's a really unfortunate occurrence in our society, here in Botswana and elsewhere, wherever it is being perpetuated. And I would like to submit to yourselves that it's high in the priority areas of the present government. I have my notes here that I wanted to discuss with yourselves. However, I just wanted to digress a little bit and illustrate one fundamental point. There is cybersecurity on one hand, which really seeks to protect in the final analysis a person's assets, a business assets, a government's assets. Cybersecurity is a whole host of things. It encompasses tools that are being deployed, the technologies that are being deployed for that particular protection that we are seeking. It also encompasses training, education, among other things. So I was noting the findings as they were made here and the recommendations that were being proposed. Without the benefit of having read the document, I believe we can argument whatever that we want to do, in particular to address this issue of GBV. This is about our mothers, our sisters, our daughters, jalo jalo bagaetsho. Go raya gone gore it's really, really important when we talk about this protection. We seek, in the first instance, to preempt where such occurrences do not happen, or if they happen at a minimal level. So what am I saying? We have a national cybersecurity strategy that has been developed that was approved in October 2020. And when we look at strategic objective 2, that particular strategy is emphasizing on education and awareness. So the point that I'm making, in as much as we are looking towards that side of the room, we have initiatives that have been specified and stipulated where we need to pursue as a people, as a country, as one nation here in Botswana. Already in our midst here, I know Remoepe, who is part and parcel of that process. We are at a time when diffusion of ICT services has happened on a grander scale and will continue to be increased. Very soon, you'll be hearing about 54 government services going online, which means we will be transacting more and more. Our presence, in particular women, will increase at that level. You did share, the earlier speaker, about the different forms of these crimes that are perpetuated online. This includes your neighbor revenge porn, as you stated. You know, the sad part about these things, they are being perpetuated by, in some instances and more often, by people we know, people we relate with. And it looks like they're getting away scot-free. However, I want to share with the team here and the people here, through these efforts to cyber security, we have that digital forensic lab. At this moment in time, it's in the hands of the police. The strategy advocates for such a structure also to be in the private sector, so that we are able to gather electronic evidence that can be used in our courts. Among us, your findings, you should, or rather, in taking the study forward, I want you to pay attention to the judiciary and the law enforcement, their capacity and capability, because the judiciary is lagging behind, and were you to try and prosecute these crimes, it's going to be problematic. We know for the law to remain relevant, it must be applicable to the context, otherwise it falls into destitute. Again, as you are making proposals, among other things, the promulgation of new acts and also fortifying the existing ones. Just a minor correction, cyber crime, not cyber security and computer-related crime act. Year 2018, it is being reviewed as we speak at the moment. So we need to contribute towards that process in developing and in revamping that particular act. In our ministry, we have been granted the authorization to develop the cybersecurity law. At this present moment in time, we are working on the layman's instruction, of which I'm giving you a heads up for tentatively this coming month. We would like to see your participation in that discourse of how we shape this particular piece of law, because among other things, we need to preempt and then deal with eventualities, which is the cyber crime. So the revamping of that cyber crime will be very key and very important in that regard. So I was merely trying to cite and illustrate there are various efforts that have been done. But we know national laws by their own are not adequate. So again, in taking this study forward, you need to understand that transgressions can be committed from outside our borders. and the national laws would not be adequate. And therefore, the applicability of international law in the use of ICTs and the cyberspace will be very key and important. As we speak at this moment, the Ministry Warona, we are participating at the United Nations open-ended working group, which is seized with this question: how does the international law apply? Remember, it was developed once upon a time, and is still very much relevant in many an area. However, the question of how it applies in the use of ICTs, because there are transgressions that are committed state against state and non-state actors against states, and also transgressions that are committed at personal level. And therefore, we have commenced a process where we want the stakeholders, public and private, to participate and help us as a nation to make our contribution at the United Nations level. And the good thing, the British government has sponsored 3 young women to participate in that forum. I happen to be the leader of the team. But the whole point that I'm trying to emphasize here, the inputs of women in the development of the body of law is really important, and you must take your meaningful place in trying to contribute towards that which we want to do in terms of fortifying the policy and legal framework. However, that on its own is not sufficient. And the point Pamela was making, yeah, education and awareness. Some people believe when they are doing these things, they cannot be found. I think the message that we need to relay out there, you can be found, you will be found. We have put in some structures at this moment in time. One of them, the communication, computer incidents response team, and the digital forensic lab that we are speaking to, and then enhancing the capabilities and the capacities of our law enforcement agencies. But the best way of engaging education and awareness, so that you know, but even if you were to do these things, you can be found, you will be found, and there will be consequences. So in my submission, I'm saying to you, ladies and gentlemen, please familiarize yourself with the National Cybersecurity Strategy. It's got 6 strategic objectives in it, and we note where there are several strategic initiatives under each and every one of the strategic objectives. The US, as an example, has been helping us in terms of pursuing some of those strategic objectives. So if we are deliberate and recognizing the resources are limited out there, we need to then plan better as a people, coming together and identifying the priority areas and aligning in that manner, so that we curb this scourge, gender-based violence in our community and preempt some of these things that are occurring day by day. At the end of the day, what I wanted to say, we do appreciate your sponsorship, your coming here together. When we are talking about the education and awareness in terms of the cybersecurity strategy, we are lacking in terms of the content. In your countries where you come from, the content, you are at another level of such content. Now, when we engage with the media here, it will be very helpful for us to do this and taking this to another level. We do appreciate your commitment and investment in this regard.
I'm honored to be part of this important discussion about online gender-based violence and media freedoms for women. Thank you to the organizers for inviting me to this important event. I'm really proud that this research was funded in part by the United States Agency for International Development through its Advancing Rights in Southern Africa, ARISA program, and it's wonderful to have Dr. Ann Dix here, the country representative for USAID. The ARISA program is implemented by Freedom House in partnership with the American Bar Association, Rule of Law Initiative, PACT, and Internews. ARISA is a 5-year, $12.5 million program that focuses on 4 major human rights themes: women's customary land rights, media freedom and digital security, support for human rights defenders, and indigenous peoples' rights. The program operates in 8 countries throughout the Southern African region, including Botswana. Gender-based violence is a global issue of paramount concern. It undermines safety, health, well-being, economic potential, and human rights. In addition to the human cost to individuals affected, gender-based violence has direct and indirect costs for families, communities, and economies. It impacts democratic governance, development, and public health. Gender-based violence is endemic in all of our communities, not just in Southern Africa, but globally, including in the United States. The statistics are sobering. In the United States, about 1 in every 4 women and nearly 1 in 10 men have reported being impacted by sexual violence, physical violence, and/or stalking by an intimate partner. Globally, 1 in 3 women across their lifetime are subjected to physical or sexual violence by an intimate partner or sexual violence from a non-partner. In Botswana, over 67% of women have experienced abuse, which is over double the global average. The U.S. government recently launched its first national strategy on gender equity and equality. The strategy underscores the U.S. government's commitment to advancing the rights and opportunities of women, girls, and LGBTQI+ persons in the United States and around the world. It cements our long-standing belief that gender equity and equality are both a moral and strategic imperative. We must continue to work together to develop and strengthen national and global policies to end gender-based violence, support survivors through comprehensive service provision, and increase prevention efforts. Unfortunately, the internet has become another vector for violence against women. To address online abuse and harassment domestically and globally, we will convene a U.S. government task force and seek input from leading experts to produce recommendations for preventing and improving the response to technology-facilitated gender-based violence. These efforts will focus on addressing cyberstalking, non-consensual distribution of intimate images, and the internet as a tool of abuse to intimidate and silence women, including politicians, journalists, and activists. In Botswana, through the Young African Leaders Initiative, or YALI, 200 girls and 100 mentees graduated from the Girls for Girls program. Girls for Girls, or G4G, helps young women to develop the courage, vision, and skill sets to take on public leadership roles. Bringing together insights from key leaders and a global network of mentors, G4G works to grow a pipeline of women in public leadership positions in Botswana. G4G promotes amplifying the voices of young women, their hopes and aspirations, and empowering women to change the world. I look forward to hearing about the findings of this important research and how we can use it to mitigate gender-based violence globally, both online and in person.
The second National Gender Commission was launched at the beginning of this month. So we are still pretty new from the box, as someone earlier said, and we are just learning to find our way around in dealing with a very complex issue before us. And I just want to start by acknowledging the good work that is being done by Gender Links Botswana in terms of leading research that promotes gender equality in the region, and particularly in our country. It's very good to be able to introspect as a nation to see where we are going wrong and begin to think about ways we can address any challenges that we find within our society. I believe that the study on online GBV is very timely and will begin to set the tone for us, especially in the political space as we move towards the 2024 general elections. We know that women have attempted to participate in political decision making at different levels, and unfortunately, the language that is used in political spaces is very, very unfortunate. And I take that with the presence of the media houses here, we are going to work hard to expose these issues in our society, to get our political representatives and other national leaders and community leaders to get to the bottom of these issues and see how best we can work together as a society to address issues of gender-based violence generally and specifically online gender-based violence. As a citizen who uses the internet and other social media platforms, I can attest to the fact that online GBV is a reality that we are experiencing at all levels of society. And it is upon all of us at different levels, in different fora, to engage with one another to see how we can address this monster. Now, we all are aware that gender inequality and specifically gender-based violence is a product of cultural socialization, which means that we as a collective, as a nation, from the family through the neighborhood, our communities, and society at large need to work together to ensure that we socialize our children to be gender sensitive from a very tender age. And I think we owe it to ourselves to begin to monitor the way we speak with our children, the way we draw their attention to inappropriate use of language while they are still young, so that they can grow with this respect in them, knowing that both women and men, boys and girls, are crucial in the participation of public discourses on social development in our country. Patriarchy as a system promotes male heterosexual dominance and the devaluation of women and girls, as well as sexual minorities. Patriarchy influences power relations in both positive and negative ways. So GBV, including online GBV, is a result of negative patriarchal influences. And so it is in this light that I believe there is need for transformation of the mindset from the family level through the different socialization institutions such as the school, the church, the neighborhood, the community, and different social clubs to address issues of gender inequality. There is no doubt in my mind that digital technologies have great potential to increase the empowerment of men and women in our society. Ideally, digitalization provides a space for public discourse on a wide range of social issues, including promotion of gender equality and the advancement of democratic values and participation in community and social life. But as we have learned from this study that has just been shared with us, and other studies that have been carried out elsewhere, we realize that gender-based violence is a sad reality, that digital technologies may also be used in a manner that is injurious, especially to women and girls and sexual minorities. In most cases, it is women and girls and sexual minorities who are often harassed, defamed, and silenced by well-known people in their social environment, as well as faceless perpetrators, people who hide behind fake names and fake facial identities to promote hate speech, sexual harassment, and all forms of image-based abuses. And I believe it calls for all of us as society to work together to address the immense pains that women and girls suffer at the instance of such violences. I listened carefully to what Re Mashika was saying in terms of the government responses, and I believe all of these responses are quite appropriate and on point, and what remains is enforcement to ensure that we are able to realize these goals that we have set for ourselves as a nation. And so we at the National Gender Commission will strive to advocate for strengthening of the national laws, policies, and processes to ensure that all forms of gender-based violence are comprehensively addressed. And one of the issues that we have picked, which has been highlighted by this study, is the need for public education at the very highest level, because we recognize that some of our political leaders do not have the knowledge and skills to engage in the promotion of gender equality. So if we are to make laws that are more impactful, it is important that we educate our national leaders and all other community leaders, such as the Khosi, Baruti, and everyone else, to a level that we almost did when we were fighting the HIV and AIDS pandemic in our society. We know that all levels of society worked very hard to ensure that messages reached all levels of our society. So we need to do the same with education on gender-based violence. And as we move towards the 2024 national elections, I think it's very important to encourage our political leaders and their political parties to make very clear commitments to develop gender-focused laws and policies and to take disciplinary action against their members who violate established gender protocols. I believe that there is need for government to increase funding to support civil society organizations and community-based organizations in the area of gender rights and interventions for restoring GBV survivors and perpetrators. it is important that we all work together to ensure that our communities are safe. We have witnessed during the COVID-19 lockdown how families became unsafe in a manner that was not perhaps so obvious to many of us. So it is clear to me, therefore, that while public education needs to target our national leaders, it is also important to reach out at the family institution to create safe families, safe neighborhoods, and safe communities. I've been asked to assure this gathering that the National Gender Commission is committed to collaborating with all sectors of society to promote gender equality and access to social development through appropriate use of ICTs. Mme ke re ko bohelong betso, ke tsaya gore this requires all of us to come together as citizens with the support of our development partners to find ways of strengthening our laws, strengthening our national policies, as well as creating platforms where we can engage safely to discuss these issues. I know that politicians become uncomfortable when Botswana as a society is referred to as an angry nation. But we have seen several international reports that show that we are an angry nation. And I liked it when someone earlier on observed that even when you post something very, very innocent, you will be shocked by the sort of responses that are posted. People are angry. And why are we angry? Maybe we need to introspect as a nation so that we can deal with these issues before they get out of control. I thank you very much.
Basically, as Botswana Police Barrets, we enforce all written laws. There is the Cyber Crimes and Computer-Related Crimes Act of 2018. And if you look through that act, there are a lot of offenses which borders around issues of gender-based violence. And to point out that there is no offense gender-based violence. So as the police, because we enforce all written laws, we have to look through all these reports that come, and we are training our police officers to be able to pick that this isn't a GBV-related issue and a portion or assign appropriate charge. These offenses would be found in the Children's Act. They would be found in the Computer and Cyber Crimes Related Act. You'd also find them in the Penal Code.
I work under a department born in 2019 called Cyber Forensics. It's a department of the police that deals with issues of digital forensics, issues of cyber security, issues of information security, as well as issues surrounding anything that deals with things in the cyberspace. For the past 4 years, we've been dealing with issues that we will tackle obviously today around social media platforms, as well as the relations of people online.
We at the Gender and Child Protection, we have dedicated officers who are monitoring the internet and picking all these cases that could be suspicious of being online GBV.
There's a rise in the cases of online violence that is happening, especially targeting children. And this is not only what we have gotten from the report that you just mentioned, but also from the Global VEX study that was conducted in 2006. It also showed that the trend was such that there's a high numbers of cyber crime that is happening, especially targeting young children. There are also some, as UNICEF, mostly our focus will be around children, so that is how we then come to know that this is happening. And also as well, we do work closely with the police, so some of the cases that have been reported, they do reach our office, and we do have an opportunity to interact with people at different levels. And from these interactions, we have been able to establish that there is a rise in the number of cyber crimes that are happening in Botswana.
Because most of us and all of us here are online, we see what happens every day. We see the kind of content that is being posted and published by several people. If you look at that alone, you realize that the online gender-based violence is very, very high for all genders. You know, those who don't identify, those who identify male or female. The problem is having those numbers as high as they are online does not translate to official records. In the sense that there are not so many people that ultimately report these cases to the police. So official numbers will be very, 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 very low. For example, in a week, if online I see, because we do monitor the internet by Uncle I said, if in a week we see maybe 5 incidences that we could term as online GBV, or anything that amounts to that, when you assess after 7 days to check whether there's been any police station that those cases were reported at, you find that none of them has been reported. And the other thing is that we would even try to find victims, try to get them to report. And you know, as a victim, sometimes you gauge your own self and you take a decision whether you want to report or not. And most of our victims will decide, no, I don't want to report this person. And the reason why they don't want to report is because this person is intimate with me, this person is my uncle, this person is my father, this person is my stepfather, this person is my boyfriend. I cannot be said to be going to the police station to report this person. And this person, this happens as well in traditional crimes. I mean, the GBV that we see in real life, the one that's not visual. The same thing happens. You hear somebody crying in next door. Somebody is reported, he's arrested, the next day he's been released because the victim has withdrawn the case. So for example, cyber harassment, we've only had 2 cases in 11 months. But the amount of cyber harassment that happens online is more than what we've recorded as Botswana Police Service. I think I should first mention that we do not have an offense called online GBV. You know? So
could that be a limitation in itself?
well, if as a nation and if as a civic society we do realize that we need to specifically classify it as online, because the thing is, technology is here, and it's the only thing that is controlling our lives. 90% of our lives is controlled by technology. So I think, like as Namasihai was saying earlier, perhaps as we are reviewing the Cybercrime and Computer-Related Offences Act, we need to include such clauses in the Act so that it becomes maybe a bit clearer to victims, to police officers, to the prosecution, and to everybody else as to what this offense is. But currently, we are using from Section 16 to Section 22 of the Cybercrime and Computer-Related Offences Act. We've got cyber harassment, we've got revenge pornography.
Gender-based violence online, it started being rampant in my life when I was 17 years. I joined politics when I was 17 years. I was doing my first year by that time. But even before that, people used to say a lot of things to me, specifically about my body online. So you know how we full figures. But when we lose we usually, I don't know if it's attract some sort of attention. Oh, okay. But even though I was both 14, 15, 16 years,
at my age, I didn't expect to get attention from men, rather. So at some point when I was 16, I stopped posting my pictures online because I realized, this is not the same attention I want as a teenage girl. Because I was getting attention from banna ba, even ba ba lekana le papa ka dingwaga ba ke expectang gore e be e ka nna batsadi ba me. I started getting attention e ntseng yalo. And then I got off Facebook when I was doing first year because I just needed to focus on school le gore attention ye ne ke feel gore e mo go nna e ntsintsi e etswe. So I joined politics, and ke gone go ke ithutileng that this thing is not going to go anywhere. Se nka se dirang hela ke go ithuta go tshela le sone. And then in politics, the conversation was no longer about predominantly about my body. The conversation was always about my politics and politicking. I'm going to be honest with you. Gender-based violence, it's dominant more online platforms because so politicking, gender-based violence, it's very hard to tackle and very hard to deal with because like from my party, it's very easy for me to call someone out for gender-based violence, especially online, if that person is not specifically from the same political party as me. But if it's someone from the same political party as me, it tends to be a bit difficult. Because sometimes how party you tend to turn a blind eye to whatever crime that person has committed and tend to say, this person is part of my political party, so I'm just going to remain silent. Even though my politiki, they can deny it and tell you that they're always objective. It's not true. People call each other out on gender-based violence, especially online in politics, because of a certain person's political affiliation. So if a person is from my political party, I'm just going to be quiet. If it's from the other political party, I'm going to try score some brownie points from situation yati. So now in my personal experiences, when I was in 2017, I contested as the president for UBSRC elections, and I was contesting against two guys. Bane re harlogana ka megopolo, but ne re se harlogane thata, like in our personal lives, the be ke kopana le bone ba khona go mpuisa. But online, they were not, I don't know if the correct word to use is tame. They were not in control of what their supporters were saying to me. Because I remember one day, going to school, he posted an inflamed picture of me. Which wasn't how I looked at that time. They inflated my body. That's how I'm going to look because stuff like that. And sometimes they will tell me, they will just write online, not the contestants, those are the supporters. They will post online, now that if I become SRC president, then the SRC office is going to turn into some brothel because I'll be bringing my men there. But the other contestants, which I felt was a bit unfair because if you say SRC, don't make it an issue about men versus women. Just make it an issue in that institution, whether it's male or whether it's a woman or it's a man.
What she's been saying, it's very much real and it's very much happening. Online GBV is usually to the minority groups, which is our LGBTQ and our women. So in Cyber Smart Girls, for us to have started this campaign, a lot of young people were coming forward to say, Kana Winnie, this is what's going on, 1 2 1 2. I don't know how to approach this type of issue. Ne ke itse ke na le motho, and then motho a ba ira yana ba tsa dinepe tsene re le mmogo re le mmogo le monate a ba di hitisa. I don't know how to approach this, and tota even passwords, they now have my passwords, they have access to everything that I have. How do I deal with this? So this is then we started saying, let us raise awareness to our young girls. So in issues of cyberbullying, that very much there across young women. We have online harassment where we bana hello we tsengetsa senepe motho a ba re ta ke go attend o sa itse go attendelwa eng ebile. We have issues of unwanted sexual remarks. A lot of young people are coming forward to say, Kana, I put this up there, it's a gore ka re ope a bue sepe. Ni ke re lo re le bone lo today ni ke itumetse go le monate and stuff like that. And issues of impersonation. I mean, there are a lot of issues of surrounding pseudo accounts, as already mentioned, and a lot of young women are being, what do you call this? A person replicates your whole life. What's to me, and then they call themselves Kateho, and then they start saying, Gira forex, and this is a very much high across young women. And as Cyber Smart Girls, we even then launched a campaign. I believe we launched this campaign starting from March. We then started saying we're going to teach young people about sexting. I mean, it's an issue I don't really want to talk to you about, to say but then some people are already engaging, saying I want to keep a partner, or I just want to give you this type of picture because and then we said let's then start a campaign ya sexting. If you are going to sext, these are the precautions that you need to do. These are the precautions that you could do to keep yourself safe. If there's a face, then don't put up such a picture because a lot of people are going to come for you, right? Don't show off certain marks that show what this is a result or this is Winnie, right? We then just launched a campaign. It's a sister to sister feel that even young girls can then relate to say, okay, these people have my back. I want to precaution tips. We really looked into early adolescence, which is our 13-year-olds, but then it's like a 13-year-olds, to then say, in as much as young kids have already started, but we're looking into young people they're very much experimental. This age is very much experimental. Okay, our reach is very much wide. We've already reached out to the Ministry of Transport. As I said, the campaign started during March, and we've been to Maung, we even visited Okavango Delta, at which this is what you can do as a young person to stay safe on the internet, especially young girls. We've collaborated with the EU, we've collaborated with Cyber for Dev, and with In Future Foundation that is being headed by Mr. David Moepeng. So our reach is very much wide. We already had started go Livingston Golubeng College, Palesa, as well as Ms. Botswana.
Okay, so
There was a lot of mention of revenge porn. That one I think everyone spoke about. Usually the victim is, or the victims usually are female. And you will realize that it is a deliberate thing because most of the time when such porn is released or publicized, the male part, it does not show face. You will always see the woman blown out, it was something premeditated. So I think that's one crime that we need to beat on a lot. And then there's what we call the, as you all know, the cancel culture. It can be positive and it can also be negative, depending on how you look at it. For example, when you talk of its positiveness, is when maybe it is used to actually reprimand an individual who had actually gone overboard. For example, you have seen whereby some of the celebrities who are mainly the subject in terms of cancel culture, usually they are trolled, especially when they've done something that we do not condone as a society. So I will call that a positive in terms of mitigating, especially in the absence of laws or in the absence of law enforcement, active law enforcement. Sometimes the public take the law into their hand, and sometimes it is positive, sometimes it may be negative, because sometimes you find that the person who's been trolled or who's been subjected to that cancel culture is wrongly accused. Mob justice. Some people will say it is good. Other times you will find that no, it is really not good. Someone has to be brought before the